My name is Jaden and welcome to my page. Today is the first part of my testimony on Sunset Bay Academy. This is a multi-part series with my testimony about the troubled teen industry. As I've said before, here are the trigger warnings for this video. If these are okay with you, then let's start. In order to give you guys a good testimony about Sunset Bay Academy, I feel like I do need to go into detail about my home life and how I even got to the point of being sent to Sunset Bay Academy. I was adopted by narcissistic parents, and while I was in the home, I was physically and emotionally abused. Some of this abuse included being pulled by our ears and to the point where the back of our ears bled. We were also, two of us were locked in a room from the outside so we couldn't get out, and the glass was plexiglassed, so we couldn't leave through the windows either. In this room, we were in there for months at a time. One of my sisters was in there throughout the entire quarantine. And we got food in there and stuff like that, but like for going to the bathroom, we had to knock on the door and someone had to let us out. I was able to hold myself because I was older, but my younger sister, sometimes she did soil herself in the room and she would get hit because of it. So there's that. That was something that was really difficult. We would sometimes be spanked or hit to the point where we had bruises, and if the parents would see the bruises, they would ask, like, hey, how'd you get that scratch? How'd you get that bruise? And some of us would be like, oh, I don't know, maybe I tripped or something, because we didn't want to start conflict. Other times, some of us would be like, oh, you gave it to us during this situation. And every single time, without doubt, they would say, no, we didn't. That's not true. You're lying. And so I guess something that happened was we were gaslit into believing, like, oh, the things that were happening at home were normal. Everyone goes through this, and everything was okay. And that was very not true, but it's definitely something that we believed. Upon the first time that I ran away, there was a situation where I was caught on my Nintendo Switch in the middle of the night, caught talking to a party of people who I was playing Fortnite with. And something that was a very big no-no in my household was you're not allowed to talk to strangers, which I feel like is across the board, like in most families. Don't talk to strangers, it's not safe. And I was talking to people online. They were my age range. I wasn't doing anything inappropriate or anything like that. However, that is not what they believed. Anyways. Oh, another thing. We weren't allowed to, like, text our friends. None of us had any social media. We didn't have a phone. We didn't have our own computers. We had no electronics. We weren't allowed to watch TV. Nothing like that. If we wanted to call our friends, it had to be on the parents' phone, and they had to be there. Same with talking to biological parents or family. They were kind of around and monitoring. But anyways, they caught me on this Switch, and I remember going upstairs and like freaking out because I knew that this was going to be really bad. And I tried to be like, no, I wasn't doing anything bad, like, I was literally just having fun, whatever. And I remember being chased down the hallway downstairs. I lived in the basement. being chased downstairs, and I remember I locked myself in the bathroom because I did not want to whatever was about to happen, I did not want to have happen. And I was terrified. I was in the bathroom, and I was shaking, and they were just pounding on the door. And I saw the, like, hinges start to break on the door, and I was like, you know what, shit. I'm just gonna open the door, like, whatever happens to me, happens to me. We had these, like, jealousy windows with, like, the panes on it, and I couldn't get out of them either, so I was kind of just like, you know what, whatever's gonna happen is gonna happen, it's fine. And I opened the door, and because of how much force was being pounded on that door, the parent flew in, and then we had, like, this ledge on the door. She flew in and ended up actually breaking her hip. Which I believed was all my fault. If I hadn't been playing Fortnite, I wouldn't be in this situation. And I was hated after that. I was grounded for life. I wasn't allowed to leave my room, anything like that. And I thought that I was going to be, like, it was terrible. Anyways, after that night was the first night that I ran away. Because I was just so scared, honestly. Like, I was just terrified. I didn't know what was gonna happen to me at all. And I ran away to an ex's house of mine. I was in middle school. I ran away to his house, and I stayed there that night, and they called the police on me. My parents at the time called the police on me. And they picked me up the next day, and they dropped me off with my parents. They didn't do any kind of investigation at all. They didn't ask, like, how my home life was, nothing like that. I was just given back, and I went back, and it was really, really bad still. And that's when I let them know, like, I'm gonna keep running away, because nothing here is getting better. I still had straight A's at this point in time. I was doing really well in school. School was like my getaway. It was like I can focus on something and do well. And that was my escape. Even when I was in quarantine and I had to do everything from home, that was my escape. And when kids started to go back to school, we weren't allowed to go back to school. I think they gained a lot of control during quarantine, and they liked that control, and that's why we weren't allowed to go back. However, they couldn't keep me at home anymore, so they decided that I could go to an all-girls boarding school in Connecticut called Westover. And once I got to Westover, I met so many cool people, and I learned to love myself, and I learned what it was like to be around healthy people and how, like, teenagers are supposed to be living. And it was just such a different experience than what I was used to. And during, like, the middle of the school year, I would still have to do calls, still have to talk to them, right? And it was just, I was always doing something wrong, or I wasn't doing enough. And my mental health just started deteriorating. And I started self-harming. It was I was a mess. But I decided that I was not gonna go back home. Like, that was not gonna happen. So at the end of the school year, I ran away. They dropped me off at the airport, JFK airport, and I took a train to Massachusetts, and I filed a CPS reports, and I ended up in a psych ward. And that is part 1 of my testimony on SBA. That was kind of my before. I got through the video, so there's that. Stay tuned for part 2. And if you have any questions at all, please, please, please leave them in the comments, and I will answer them. I feel like this is definitely a little spotty. I'm trying to just hit key points here because I feel like the beginning is not very important. But yeah. Anyways, bye-bye.